So today's speaker is Dan Rusanowsky. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. San Jose Sharks Radio play-by-play sports announcer Dan Rusanowsky has been nominated for the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame class of 2013. Each year, the California Historical Radio Society and the Bay Area Radio Music Museum and Hall of Fame honor the best radio broadcaster around the Bay Area. Rusanowsky has served as play-by-play announcer for the San Jose Sharks since its team's inception in 1991. He has broadcast every Sharks regular season and playoff game in franchise history, with the exception of 27 games he missed in the 2001 season after being involved in a serious auto accident. Rusanowsky is responsible for producing all San Jose Sharks radio broadcasts, directs and administers the multi-station Sharks radio network, which provides coverage of all games for hockey fans in Northern California and parts of Nevada and Oregon, and oversees the relationship with flagship station KFOX FM. Let's give a warm round of applause for Dan Rusanowsky.
Do I need this? I don't know if you need this, do I?
Yeah.
Here. Do I? Do I need
You're
this?
an announcer.
Oh, sure. Dave, thanks a lot for that really kind introduction. By the way, out of all the ones I've ever received, that was definitely one. I would like to say that it's kind of interesting to come here on the day of a game. Tonight, the Sharks play the New Jersey Devils back at SAP Center, a building that we're very proud of. Anybody from Jersey here? Nobody?
They can't. They couldn't make the meeting.
They couldn't. Well, I have to say that these are very interesting times for our hockey franchise. As you probably are aware, all you have to do is wake up in the morning and take a look at the standings or some recent play. So I'll give you some of the particulars. The team comes into this game with a 5-game losing streak. We've lost our last 5 consecutive games. We've traded away 3 of our most recognizable players. And so the question then comes from the community, what's going on? And the simple answer is that during the natural course of the life of a team, you go through times like this. And I can say that since I've been here since day one, the Sharks missed the playoffs in 2015. So that was only 5 years ago. However, that was a very different season because they were very much in the playoff hunt until almost the end of the year. Whereas here we are at the trade deadline near the end of February, and even though mathematically there is a chance the Sharks could qualify, they're 14 points out with 18 games to play. And in today's modern NHL, the way they do the standings, it's going to be almost impossible for the team to get there. Not impossible, but almost impossible. So, what's the story? What's going on with our hockey team? Well, this team has been a team in transition for a couple of years. But the last couple of years, we managed, like some other teams that have had great success for a long time, to get into the playoffs to have a chance to win. And in fact, last season, the team went all the way to the conference final. So they were 2 wins away from playing for the Stanley Cup last year. 4 years ago, I have to do my math for a second. 4 years ago, the team went to the final. Anybody go with any of those games? No, you did. Stu was good. But that was a special time, not only for the franchise, not only for the building, great building that we play in, but also for all of you, all of us that represent San Jose wherever we go. Whether you're in the sales business or whether you're working on a road crew or whether you're working in an office, we represent you each and every time that we're out there. We just came back from a 4-game road trip back east to New York, New Jersey, to Philadelphia, and to Long Island. And so that's an important part of what we're trying to do. We want to make sure that we give you an effort we can be proud of, win or lose. And I know that there are some people who, we got a letter back a few years ago that said, we're with you, win or tie. We don't have ties in that. But that's how it works. And we understand that, but that's the expectation. But right now where we are is we are in the process of retooling the hockey team. But what do we have? What often happens when you go through hard times in life, one of the best things you can do is say, what do I have? What do I have here? And what we have is we have an unbelievable fan base. We have a tremendous building to play in. Above all of that, we've got maybe the best owner in the National Hockey League in Hasso Plattner. somebody who desperately wants to win a Stanley Cup and wants to give our hockey department, but our whole business department, all the tools that we need to be successful. So we have all of those things. But inside the locker room, we also have a lot of things too. We have three of the best defensemen, most highly prized defensemen in the game. And I can't say that, I think it's been one of the stories of this season, is we've had a limited number of games in which all three of them were absolutely on top of their game. I'd say maybe 5 out of the games we played 64, I think it is now. So that was an issue for this season. We also had some shifts in our development program, where we have the youngest team in the American Hockey League. Anybody been to Barracuda games? San Jose Barracuda? It's fun, isn't it? Yeah, great. Very affordable. These are great players. It's an outstanding league, but the team suffers in part because they're very, very young, and they're playing against some other organizations that have more experienced guys. Remember also that we've only missed the playoffs twice in 2 decades. So our draft position isn't as good as some of those other clubs. The LA Kings missed the playoffs for 7 years in a row. And it took them a whole bunch of time trying to get it right before they did win the Stanley Cup. And right now they're right back to last place again. So we don't want to do that. We want to be a team that competes all the time at the NHL level, but at the AHL level, we also want to be able to compete. I think a couple of years ago they were 8 points out of the playoff spot. It looked like they were done, similar situation where the Sharks are now. And they ended up making the playoffs, and they got a couple of outstanding prospects to come in and help. Well, at the beginning of this season, we knew that there were going to be some adjustments because our captain, Joe Pavelski, chose to leave to go to Dallas. I think this is the year that we missed that leadership probably the most. But Joe's 35, we have a salary cap league, and Joe got $8 million a year for 3 years, and also got the benefit of getting that in a state that doesn't have any income taxes. So in order to match that, obviously, you would have to readjust what you have. Because we made the commitment and we made the trade to get Erik Karlsson after the opportunity to get John Tavares didn't come to fruition, I think that the Sharks knew that they were going to have to retool a little bit. Doug Wilson's been on this for a couple of years, so this is no surprise. What we were hoping was that at the beginning of the year, some of these young prospects would be a little bit more ready for the National Hockey League than it turns out that they are. How many of you guys have kids? How many in your life have ever been disappointed in the progress of your kids? Right. That's exactly what's happening, right? And what I always say is, players are developing. These players are learning. And they're learning when they lose, when they make a mistake. You talk to anybody who's a champion. I got a broadcast partner, Bret Hedican, who won a Stanley Cup when he played for the Carolina Hurricanes. He'll be the first to tell you that a lot of games that he remembers are not the moments when the seconds wind down and you celebrate with your guys. You remember all that. But the path to victory is often with a lot of bumps in the road. And they remember those because that's what makes them appreciate winning so much. So we've been through it. We've been to the conference final a whole bunch of times. First time in 2004, and then again in 10 and 11. And then of course when we went to the final, we finally broke through in 16. And last year, in 2019, we lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champion. And it's kind of funny because had the Sharks gotten by St. Louis and survived that series, I believe we would be talking about defending our first Stanley Cup right now, with all due respect to Boston. So I think that was quite a seminal moment, really, in the history of the franchise, but also the understanding that with every year comes change. So our team captain left. Logan Couture became captain of the Sharks. We have players like Erik Karlsson signed for 8 more years. Marc-Edouard Vlasic, great defenseman, going to be here for a number more years. Brent Burns, still under contract, I think at least 4 more years. And Martin Jones, our goaltender, we'll get to that in a second, signed for a number of years too. This last season and a half has been rough on our goaltender. And he's going through the process of that good to great stage. But I can tell you that last season, when people were ready to write him off, it really mattered. The game really was on the line. When survival was at stake against the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round. he ended up with the game of his life in Vegas. We wouldn't have had that miracle game, Game 7, had it not been for Martin Jones in Game 6. Same thing happened in the Stanley Cup Final against Pittsburgh. We went to Pittsburgh for Game 5, and he had 44 saves, as I remember. If it had not been for his goaltending, we wouldn't have been there. So it's been a difficult, maybe year and a half for Martin, the way that his results have come. But he's going to change the way that he trains. He's going to learn from his experiences, and let's be honest, the Sharks are going to look at all of their options for the future. And the same thing is going to go for all of the other players. They were missing several players that were key to that run in the conference final. No Rusanowsky went to Colorado. No Gus Nyquist went to Columbus. No Joe Pavelski went to Dallas. Those are 3 examples. And so, at the beginning of this season, there were all these rumors that Patrick Marleau was going to come back. But Doug Wilson didn't sign him right away. And the reason why, if you think about it, if you tell your young players and if you tell the people that come to your organization that you're going to get an opportunity if you work hard and if you play the system and if you train hard, so you do all that, you tell them all that, and they believe they're going to get their chance. Well, they see these guys leaving, and they say, well, here's my opportunity to play. Well, would it be fair to them to say, well, we're going to give you a chance, but I don't really trust you, so let's just sign a veteran player to play in that position? So Doug didn't do that. He gave the young guys an opportunity in the preseason and the early start of the year to see what they were made of and whether they were ready or not. Unfortunately, as it turned out, some of them show promise. They showed that they're not quite ready for the prime time of playing an 82-game schedule against the best league in the world. And how hard is it? Well, let's say you go through high school, you work reasonably hard, and it just doesn't really matter. It's not so special anymore. That is a process that every single young player goes through in this league, because he comes in with a certain perception of what he has to do to be his best, and he finds out that he has a lot more work to do. And he finds out sometimes as well that maybe he was the leading scorer on his team his whole life, but maybe the way that he's going to stay in the NHL is if he's a fourth-line penalty killer. Now, we have had a system that has brought us a lot of benefits. I'll give you an example of one. You know, this last week has been really emotional for our guys because, number one, nobody likes to not succeed. And this team has been used to succeeding for 2 decades, really. Since Patrick Marleau was drafted, oh, by the way, we brought him back and he had a really good season. We ended up moving him to Pittsburgh last week in order to give him an opportunity maybe to win a Stanley Cup. And that's the kind of organization we have. We try to a place where they're going to be successful. I think that's a really great quality of our team. And I think also that, you know, there's a lot of this total honesty between the team's coaches and management and the players themselves. It's not the case that way everywhere. In fact, I think it was kind of interesting when Patrick Marleau went to Toronto for a couple of years. He found out how good things are here, but also how much he loved playing for the Sharks. So, but at the end of the year, at the end of the game, he's 22 years in the league, wanted a chance to win a Stanley Cup. We're providing that for him. We got something back, a draft pick that's conditional, and at the end of the year, he's a free agent. If he wants to keep playing, there's a good chance he can come back. So that because he's an unrestricted free agent. Probably a little less likely for Brendan Dillon, simply because of the makeup of our team right now in terms of the salary cap on defense. But he's going to get a big offer from a lot of teams, probably a little bit more than we have left in our budget for defensemen. So they traded him to Washington. Again, he's got a chance to win a Stanley Cup. And we get a couple of draft picks, a very important second-round draft pick that we got back that we'll draft this summer. Barclay Goodrow never was drafted. He was a good player in junior hockey, but he went to 5 different development camps over the course of a couple of years. Nobody signed him. The Sharks took a chance on him, put him in the San Jose Barracuda. You might have seen him for a couple of years, and it was kind of interesting. He in quotes made the team, the NHL team, and on the last shift of the last preseason game, he broke his hand blocking a shot. And that kind of hurt his whole development because he was sitting for a month. Then he came back and he's got to ramp up to the NHL level. He wasn't ready for that. Went back to the Barracuda, and it's what I call it. And I spent 5 years in the AHL, so I know. We have a little phrase for it. It's get the toothpicks out. And the toothpicks are there to hold up your lip because it's down because you've been reassigned to the AHL and you're not in the NHL where you really want to be. Some guys go through that. They go through the fact because they have this expectation of themselves, and they feel sometimes maybe that it's the wrong decision, but over the course of time, they learn. And that's what happened with Barclay Goodrow. He became, he's a hero in San Jose forever for what happened in the series against Vegas last year. Down 3-0 in Game 7, third period, and we get the benefit of a major penalty called against Vegas. Hey, people say they shouldn't have called that, but I say, where was your penalty killer? I mean, my God, they scored 4 goals, took the lead, and then when they tied it and went to overtime, that's when Barclay got the game winner. And who passed him the puck? Erik Karlsson. Go back and look at the video. Timing that pass is not easy. Only an elite player could have done it. And it's that kind of a play that makes a guy like Erik Karlsson or Brent Burns a game breaker and a real, what I call, difference maker. So that's what we have on our team. Logan Couture has led the NHL in scoring in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The 2 times we've had deep runs, he's been right at the top. And I think that he's somebody that hates to lose more than anybody. He's somebody that I think is going to be an excellent captain, but this is his first year and he's been out with some injuries. He's learning what it's like to really have that responsibility. It's kind of nice when you're second in command and you kind of see how the boss is doing something. And you think it's a little easier than it actually is. But then you get that responsibility on your shoulders. And that letter C that was on his left shoulder, I think in the beginning of the year, was maybe a little bit heavy for him. He was putting a lot of pressure on himself because he wanted to be that perfect captain. And I think he's going to be a great one in the NHL. So you throw all those things together and you have what we have. You have the team where it is in the standings right now. But Barclay Goodrow, back to him, nobody signed him, nobody drafted him, nobody wanted him until the Sharks finally gave him a chance. And we got a first-round draft pick for this kid. You can't turn that down, especially when you don't have one. We didn't have one because of the Erik Karlsson trade. So that's what you had to give to get there. And we got returned back. And I think that those players, you have to understand how it works in the NHL. You don't necessarily see the benefit of a draft selection in the fall right away. Usually it takes a couple of years before these guys go, because this is a team sport. It's a sport of accountability, but I also think it's a sport where people exhibit the pride they have in their community more than any other sport, and I'll go to the death on that one. I think that our players are fantastic. They love playing for each other, but they also love representing the community that they're from. And I think that that's another factor to remember, that right now is the time when we really appreciate and depend our support at the AHL level, but at the NHL level too, of our most loyal fans. Because we know they want to win too. And we know it's disappointing when you're not where you feel you should be. But I think that the elements that I'm talking about with the team, with the great level players we have at the top end, with some guys that are coming in. Tonight we're going to have 2 kids that are in the top 6 on forwards. Noah Gregor, who played for the Barracuda this year, scored a goal last game in Philadelphia, nice goal. He'll be playing with Logan Couture, so that's a good opportunity for him. And we've got Leon Bergman just recalled. He's going to play tonight and play for the Sharks on the line with Joel Sheldon and with Stefan Nason. So that's been a nice 4th line. It's kind of funny. We didn't have that in place the year that we went to the final and made a deadline deal and picked up a couple of vets to get us through that helped us. Last season, the same thing. We kind of got our way through on that 4th line of forwards. But I think we've got a group of guys that are here right now that are going to be important for us. And it's funny, you're only as good as your so-called worst player. In hockey, you can't do what you can do in basketball where, you just give LeBron the ball. And you go to the final, right? It's not quite as simple as that because basketball's a team sport too, but that one guy makes such a big difference. Now, one player can make a big difference in our game, somebody like Erik Karlsson or Logan Couture or around the league, somebody in my mind like Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon. I think those are the 2 real best players in the Western Conference certainly right now. But what happens in the playoffs? It's always that 3rd or 4th line guy that has that great game or that great series that makes a difference and helps you win. And the goaltending too. So hockey's a unique sport, and I think we've got a unique team, but the most important thing is we've got great fans, all of you that support us, we appreciate it. But more than that, I think that the future is bright. We've got young kids that are coming in that are pretty solid prospects. They're taking a little bit longer than we had hoped. That happens. We all have kids and we see that happen, as I said before. But also in addition to that, the upcoming draft and the upcoming moves that we have, all of these deals that we made at the trade deadline this past week give our organization maneuverability. And you have to have maneuverability in order to improve your team quickly. But fortunately, we can take advantage of other teams making mistakes with the way they manage their money. Or, another thing we've been very successful with has been signing players out of Europe and out of college hockey as free agents, people that were like Barclay Goodrow, undrafted, maybe developed a little bit later. And if you look at our roster now, we've got Melker Karlsson, we've got Tim Heed, we've got Marcus Sorensen. These are guys that allowed us to compete for the really last year going to the conference final. And they did that because they come here, they're a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit more experienced. They have to, the ones from Europe have to adjust to the ice surface here and the way they play here. It's different. But the ice surface is wider in Europe. It's 100 feet wide instead of 85 feet wide. So the way you play is different. And I think that some of the guys that we get are actually more suited to playing well on this ice surface that we have in North America. So that's always interesting to see. But the ability of our scouts to A, get guys here, and B, give them a path where they know that they have a path to get to the NHL, I think has been pretty critical for the organization. So these guys didn't all start at the NHL level. They started with the Barracuda, or before that in Worcester. But they didn't go there thinking, I'm going to get buried here and I'm going to get lost. They're going to go there knowing that our management looks at them, that they follow what they're doing, and then they do give them an opportunity, like I said earlier. Instead of signing a bunch of free agents to show we don't trust your people that you've given out an investment in, you actually trust them, and you should give them the opportunity. And then the players know, and then the players believe in you too. So I think that that's what we have. We really have something special coming up. I think that the rest of the season, the key is to work as hard as you can for the captain of our team, Logan Couture, and the veterans on the team to show a good example to the young players as to exactly how you're supposed to work and prepare. And that starts tonight against the Devils, and we'll see what happens. We're hopeful that we have a good game tonight, and we have a 6-game homestand, so we know that the fans will be cheering for us, but more often than not, it really comes down to the togetherness in that room, which is something that we really try to ingratiate and enhance during the course of our time here. So I really appreciate the fact you're having me here today. I can tell you that Rotary has a great tradition. You have a 4-way test that I know about. And I can tell you about the 5-way test of what we have for what we want from a Sharks player. We have kind of a 5-way test. One, you want someone with character as an individual, a character human being. Someone that's going to play for his teammates, is going to be there. The second thing you want is someone who has great hockey sense. What do I mean by that? Somebody that studies the game, is a student of the game, wants to be better, and wants to know what's happening on the ice. And we're talking about this today. I talked to a young player, Leon Bergman, who's going to play tonight. He's been with the Barracuda. And I asked him about this. I said, what's the difference between the AHL and the NHL? And he said, well, one thing is that when you have to make a decision what you're going to do with the puck before you get it, you don't have time to think about what you're going to do when it's there. You have to know what you're doing right away. In the AHL, you have a split second to think a little extra. Just a split second. But that split second can mean everything. So that's one thing that he noted. So you need hockey sense. You need to be able to do that. That's the second thing out of 5. Third thing you need out of 5, and this is really interesting, is you need to love the game. How many people are professional hockey players that don't love the game? Believe it or not, more than you think. There are guys that are good at this. It's what they do. They're good at it, but they don't really love the game the same way they loved it when they were a kid. And those guys usually don't give you what you need. We really look for people who love the game passionately and still have that. Joe Thornton is 40 years old, and he's the happiest guy on the ice. Even now, when his team's not in the playoff hunt and he didn't get traded to go to another team to maybe win a cup, he is in the locker room today as positive as ever, and he loves being around the rink. That's critical. You have to know that. And I have an uncle. Anybody serve in the military here? Okay. You did? So my uncle's buried at Arlington National Cemetery.
Oh.
He is the only person I know personally, although I know there are a number of others. He was in World War II, then he was in Korea, and then he was in Vietnam. He was in all of them. And he has had the Silver Star. He retired a full colonel after enlisting in the Army as just coming out of high school. So he always said, I used to always remember this, when he was in Vietnam particularly, I wasn't around for Korea, but I was around for Vietnam. And he used to always tell his family that, you know, he'd get a letter from home. The love of his family, the love of his country was what got him through the hardest times out there. When you were in the heat of battle, in action, that's what got you through. Well, this is not the same as the military, but when you're in the heat of an 82-game schedule, all the travel we have, and you wake up in the morning and you feel sore, and you got to go to practice, and it's not fun, you have to have that love of the game to get you through those tough times. So that's the third category of 5. Category 4 is make other people better. I think that those of you who own or operate businesses want people working with you that make people better, because then your company is better. And Joe Thornton is a great example of that. Everybody that plays with him is better because he's there. Not only because of his great skill and ability, but because of the way he talks to the young guys and he explains to them what they have to do. And he discusses exactly how to recover from injury problems. And he's been through some big ones. And all of that, all of those emotions that you feel, including something as simple as how do you cook dinner for yourself? Because these guys have to know how to eat. They have to eat the proper food. They have to get the right rest. And there's a lot of money at stake. So the days of guys gallivanting out there at all hours are almost over. I do say almost. But primarily these guys are professionals. So they have to behave that way. And a guy, an older player that gives an example like that, like Joe or like Logan Couture, Marc-Edouard Vlasic, these are guys that have a big impact on the culture of the team. So that's the 4th thing. The 5th thing is the one we're always fighting at the most. And the 5th quality of our test of a great shark is be at your best when it matters the most. And if you look at Logan Couture's career, leads the NHL in scoring during the playoffs. Game 7 against Vegas, we get the major penalty. He scores the first goal and he turns to the team and he said, "That's one." He didn't want to celebrate the goal. He said, "That's one." The team was down 3-0 at that point when he scored. And that's real leadership. So he was at his best when it mattered the most. Martin Jones actually was at his best when it really mattered the most, which was great. And that's the kind of thing that you want. If you take all those 5 things, you could be a successful hockey franchise, but you could be a successful business if you apply the essential ideas of what I'm talking about to what you're doing. So it's a great thing for us to come to an organization like Rotary that does so much in the community. Our Sharks Foundation, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that we bring to nonprofits in the community to benefit youth. We have a lot of programs that apply for funding, and we were able to do a lot of different projects for them. And I think that's just something that's part of our culture as a team and as a franchise. And also, running the building for the city of San Jose. So with that, I would like to thank you for having me today, and I would like to open it up to any questions you might have. And I'll even let Stu ask a question. Anybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, I was wondering, that state arena has been there for a really long time. Is there any changes coming in the future, you think, or?
Well, yes, there are always changes to SAP Center in the sense we just opened up a brand new beautiful bar right above the main entrance.
Okay.
We've upgraded a lot of the things in the building. We're going to probably upgrade suites. We've done a lot of little things. There are a lot of little things that happen with our lease with the building. Remember, the city of San Jose owns the building. And a lot of the newest lease provided us with some funding with the city to do things that you're never going to see, like changing the heating and air conditioning, and changing some, keeping the building updated. One of the great things about our building is that when it was built, when Frank Jurek and Jim Goddard built the building with the city, they didn't scrimp on materials, and so this building has held up extraordinarily well, and we're so proud of it. And again, we have a culture there of keeping the building presentable, clean, sharp, bright. But we, over the last few years, we've put in a lot of new things, new scoreboard, new sound system, things like that you don't necessarily see. but that keeps us current and allows us to compete for all of the great shows that come to the Bay Area. And we have a competitor now, we didn't used to. Not that Oakland Coliseum didn't compete a little, but the Chase Center now is a competitor. So there's no doubt you're gonna see some people say, well, what are you gonna do to get me to come here? And what we have is we have a city that's bigger than San Francisco, where all the people who support events like this live. So in my mind, what you're probably going to see over years is the new building is kind of like the new girlfriend that's really sexy as opposed to the old one that's so loyal to you. You kind of get attracted over there. And like all of us, we're sometimes silly, but we come back and we come to our senses. And I think that's sort of what happens with our building, and that people will again come to realize how special a place San Jose is, what a great building, and what a great time to be in downtown San Jose it is, how easy it is to get in and out of there. Try comparing coming to a game at SAP Center with a 49ers game at Levi's, or even a Chase Center game. It's a lot harder to do. And we do have some evolution with the building too, because of the relationship with the city and Google as they continue to develop there. That's going to evolve over a period of probably a decade and a half, with BART coming into town, with Google developing in the area. All those things are things that we're working on to, again, upgrade the experience, but we're committed to that. You had a question?
So, yeah, I mean, the stadium looks, I mean, it's nice. It looks like it's fresh, you know, without any kind of much done. Okay, but culturally, it seems like you never hear of any hockey players getting into trouble in terms of with the law or anything crazy. Well, what do you think it is? It's the schedule because they're so damn tired? Or, I mean, why do you think that is? Because it's bizarre.
Well, here's how I would describe it, and people ask me a lot about the hockey players and their character. Do we have problems? Sure.
Yeah.
There are things that happen. We're not immune to things that society is involved with, so it's about the same percentage, I'd suppose. But the one thing that I think really makes a big difference in the game, people say, well, they come from Canada, or they come from small towns. That's increasingly not true. The state of California is starting to produce a lot of great college hockey players and pros. Stephen Nason, who plays on our team, was born in Plano, Texas. He's from the state of Texas. He plays in the NHL. So I think that perception's changing, but what is true about it is hockey is a sport that is A, not easy to play, B, it's very expensive to play. So oftentimes it takes a full family commitment in order to get a guy to get to the NHL. So you're getting people that have a real family orientation, they're working together, they take care of people, they have that in their culture, the culture of the sport. So when somebody starts to stray, you have another teammate or somebody that's going to pull you back in. And I think that's a characteristic that our sport has always had, and I hope it never loses it. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of things that get involved in that.
Question. Maybe you can address the coaching situation.
Sure.
I know, Bugner he's a great coach. He's kind of has an interim tag place on him right now. We have another great coach that coached the Barracuda for a long time, who's now up with the Sharks, and Roy Sommer. Any chance that you think Roy Sommer maybe has a chance to maybe take over as the head coach of the Sharks in the future?
Well, the answer is maybe. The answer is we don't know. And I think the reason why we don't know is because we want to wait and evaluate the whole season. And since, let's just say that the team doesn't go to the playoffs, after game 82, we'll have what we call an autopsy. We'll have an autopsy of the season. We'll go through everything that goes on. And I won't be involved in that. That'll be Doug Wilson and his staff in the hockey department. But they'll have to make a decision as to what they want to do. And I think Bob Bugner's an excellent coach. I think Roy Sommer's an excellent coach. What would say maybe give him an opportunity like that is you look at Boston. What did they do? When they made a coaching change, the guy that they hired to be their head coach was their head coach in Providence, Bruce Cassidy. And he knows all of the guys that are coming to the team because he's coached them all for a couple of years. So, sure, in fact, I just had this on my radio show the other day. Bob Bugner, I asked him about Roy Sommer, and I said, how much now that we've made all these trades and you're dealing with guys you haven't really seen all year, how much do you rely on him? And he said, you wouldn't believe how much, because Roy Sommer knows where the bodies are buried, for lack of a better way of putting it. He knows what the foibles of these individual players are. He knows whether Joel Shellman has done a lot of penalty killing, or whether he's asked Antti Suomela to be on the power play. So yeah, there potentially could be that, but we're a long way away from getting to that point. And I think Bob Bugner is also going to be a candidate, given what I've seen from him. He's got his players playing with enthusiasm. He's getting the most out of what he's got, and I think that and he's been an NHL coach too. So we're really lucky to have those guys and have Mike Ricci on the staff too. But at the end of the season, there are always people that are become available you have to consider. So that's probably what will happen.
I heard a visiting announcer pronounce Joe Shellman as Joe Kelman, the way
Right.
it looks. Where do we get Shellman out of that?
He's Swedish.
That's
There's a player that plays for mostly Stockton in the AHL, and he's played for Calgary. His name is Oliver Shillington.
yeah.
So
yeah.
it's K-Y-L-I. It's not Kylington. It's Shillington.
Okay.
But it's the way that the Swedes pronounce
They
that.
didn't get it the other night when we happened to hear some visiting.
Well, that's because they didn't ask us. And you know, it's kind of funny. So my good story of that was, I got a good story related to that. There was a player that was a great goalie in the history of U.S. hockey. Actually, he played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Tom Barrasso. And I walked up to him the first year I was in the NHL. And this is the way I do it. I walk up to the player and I say, "How do you say your name? How do you pronounce your name? How does your family pronounce your name? How do you want us to pronounce your name?" And I walked up to Tom Barrasso and I said, "Is it Barrasso or Barrasso?" And he said, "I don't give a goddamn." So I pronounced it Barrasso for that reason. And you know, here's another guy we have on our team, Kevin LeBanc. Now, his Twitter handle is straight to the bank. So you would assume that he would really pronounce it LeBanc. It was always pronounced LeBanc. How many can guess what the ethnic background of LeBanc is? Most people would say French.
Right.
Nope. His family's from Slovakia.
Yeah.
And his father actually played pro hockey in Slovakia and came to the U.S. to New York, where Kevin grew up in Staten Island, to give his family a better chance. And Kevin, so we were talking to his dad, and his dad says, "Yeah, I know, I'm going to live in with this LeBanc stuff." I said, "Well, how do you pronounce it? The real way to pronounce it is Lavance." I said, "That's not happening." So you can't fight City Hall. But we try to be as accurate as we can with pronouncing players' names because we want to get it right. We want to make sure their moms are happy. The latest one, is it Mario Ferraro or Mario? His mother likes Mario. So that's okay. Doug Murray, which we don't call him Doug Murray, we call him Douglas Murray. Why? Because his mother didn't like Doug, she liked Douglas. So we said, okay, so I guess the moms have more influence on this than you think. But serious, yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
A couple of player questions. Is True playing tonight?
He's in.
Yeah.
He's doing a good job.
I love him. He's doing really well. And you talk about young guys, but it seems like our best players from the Barracuda are like in the mid-20s, 24, 25. Like
Starting to, yeah.
Yeah, they're really ready.
But True's not 25.
No.
And Gregor's not 25. And Bergman's not 25. They're all 21.
I know, but still. Then the other question is DeSimone. I'm a big fan of DeSimone.
I like him too.
He never seems to get called up. He had a great game last night.
He's never been recalled. By the way, we were having this discussion at lunch.
Yeah.
I never say called up or sent down.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay. Because a lot of broadcasters do, a lot of coaches do. I just think you have to respect the AHL. I spent 5 years in the AHL riding buses, so I know what these guys go through. 3 games in 3 nights, 26 weeks of the year. Try that on sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think DeSimone is going to get a chance, but he hasn't warranted it yet. They feel like he's close,
Yeah.
but they don't. You know, one of the worst things you can do is put a guy in a situation where he's not going to succeed. And you know, there's another player. It's going to be an interesting decision for him. Jeremy Wise, been playing forward lately for the Barracuda. He was drafted as a defenseman. He went back on defense and has been playing. It seems like he's got his game back together. This is a young player that was drafted in the same year as Zach Werenski and Ivan Provorov. And those guys are great young defensemen. We drafted this guy first pick in the second round, but he had 2 straight years, actually 3 straight years, we had very serious injuries. So his development has been stunted. DeSimone hasn't had that. I just think they're looking for a little more consistency in his game, a little bit more, and they're working on his edge work. They're working on his anticipation at an NHL level of speed. And I think that I hope that he gets, because I like him too. I like the way he plays. A right-handed shooting defenseman too. You know, those are valuable.
Nice to have.
Yeah, nice guys to have.
So we got a couple minutes. So question, is there any sabermetrics in hockey? I mean, it's like here in baseball?
We have a lot of analytics in hockey. A lot of the analytics sites that you see are only partially good. You talk to the guys that are inside the coach's office that, you know, Charlie Townsend, who does a lot of our team analytics, and you ask him about some of these sites that are out there, and he says they've got some of it right, but a lot of it they have subjective things that we wouldn't evaluate very highly, so we keep our own analytics. But yeah, they don't do it, and they're all trying to have that balance between, you know, just looking at the numbers and doing what it says, but you also have a pair of eyes that you're watching the players too.
So, do you think that we've had a goalie that has the capability to make it and go all the way and win the cup?
Sure.
Do you think we've had one as good as Jonathan Quick? Well, we've had a team.
That's a little subjective. I'll say probably not, because he was pretty special. But I think that when we had Martin Jones on the team against Pittsburgh, he was good enough to win. In fact, if we look at that series, I thought he was right there with Matt Murray. It came down to the fact, I think, in that series they had Sidney Crosby, we didn't, and that does happen. But you're right. Do I think we have enough goaltending? No. I think that we have a young guy that's playing in the Quebec League right now named Zach Amon, who I think is a very good prospect. I think Josef Korenar, who's playing for the Barracuda, is a very good prospect. The thing that's working against him is his size. He's not tall. They're all big now, and he's more like Nabokov. But you know, he's very similar to that. But he's so athletic.
He got robbed last night. He
Well,
had a
yeah,
great game
yeah.
and still.
And he's had an up and down year.
Yeah, but he played.
Remember,
really well.
he's 21 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know that we just played Philly, and their starting goaltender Carter Hart's 21 years old. But Carter Hart's pretty special. This guy is a more he's a great athlete, but he's only playing at this level for the first time in his life. He played in the U.S. Hockey League, which is a development high school age league, and then he went to the Czech Republic and played a little bit of pro, but not at the highest level. So he's really getting a baptism of fire. And he's another guy that we'll consider as a prospect too, for sure. I think those are probably our 2 best goalie prospects that we have. There's another guy too that's playing at the University of New Hampshire, Mike Robinson, who's having a really good year right now. And we drafted him a couple of years ago, so we're hopeful that maybe he can step in as well. Zach Sawchenko, who's here, is another player that's predictable. I don't know if he's an NHL goalie or not. We'll find out in the next year or 2. Any more questions?
That's
Well,
it.
listen, I just want to say I appreciate what all of you do at Rotary. It's very important that you're involved in the community, but also that you guys fraternize with each other, because you know the one thing that's really important is that one thing that I love about hockey and about all professional sports is that we bring people from very different backgrounds and different political views and different everything to one place where we're on a level playing field to talk about something, and it's in a happy way. And we can get along with each other. And I think that that's something that you cannot underestimate, the value of what an organization like Rotary or a professional sports team or a college team or anything like that does to bring a community together. So thanks a lot for all that. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you on the radio tonight.
Thank you, and that was great. Good information. Now you have